game. Don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJay Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. And on this edition, we have a special guest with us here on the State of the Saints podcast. He's been on a show in the past, and he's back again to give his insight about the NFC South and talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. A good friend to the show. You know him from the NFL Network and all the great work he does there. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Wyche. Steve, how you doing?
TJ, thanks for having me on, my man. You're looking good, bro.
Thank you so much. You looking good too. That's that California weather right there.
Hey.
Yeah. But all in all, but before we get into it, I know there was a storm out there. Just want to know how you all are holding up out there.
No. For us here in the Los Angeles area, you know, we just got mainly, heavy rains. It wasn't like a Gulf Coast storm that you all have had in New Orleans. Some inland areas got it really bad. I mean, a lot of flooding, so you feel bad for some of those people. Some of the flooding and damage is there. We also had a little earth shake in the middle of it all. But out here in California, we're kind of used to those.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that you all are doing fine. And that was actually something that head coach Dennis Allen talked about after the Saints game against the Chargers about the weather. But good to know that everybody's doing fine out there. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. It's a new season, new change of the guard, new quarterback. Derek Carr will be the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. And he brings a lot of prestige to the quarterback position, a lot of talent. What are your thoughts on Derek Carr coming to the New Orleans Saints, and what do you think he provides by coming here?
Well, look, he provides a sense of confidence and leadership. I mean, Derek is very sure of who he is, of what he is. He really wants to win. I mean, he competes so hard, like every game, every practice. You see it when you're out there. You hear him. I mean, he's always really going for. So he's bringing in an experienced quarterback who knows opposing defenses, who knows what other defensive coordinators are trying to do. Right. So he gets all of that, He's not necessarily a high-risk guy in terms of he's not a check-down player,
right? But
he is going to take what the defense gives him. So if the defense is trying to take away Olave, he's going to hit all the underneath stuff to the tight ends and to some of the shorter intermediate routes. But he just brings such a presence. It's something that the Saints have needed since Drew Brees and Teddy Bridgewater, if you want to put that in there, have not been there, right? Somebody who comes in completely sure of who he is and what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, he's a special player. He has 33 four-quarter comebacks, and that's something that the Saints have been missing, like you said, with Drew Brees. We all remember like some of those late-game heroics, and also just some of the decision-making that he has also just kind of reminds you of that of Drew. So the Who Dat Nation, they're extremely excited about Derek Carr being under center. But there's a lot more things to be excited about, especially when you look at the defense. First-round pick, Brian Brzee, defensive tackle out of Clemson. He's a guy that is athletic. Colin Saunders is another guy. Looking at the New Orleans Saints and some of the things that they did by bringing in a guy like Brian Brzee, what do you think that a guy like that can bring to the table defensively?
Well, first off, they needed to. I mean, they lost some interior players. I mean, David Onyemata is with the Falcons now, and they've got to get that rotation going. For Dennis Allen's defense to work, you've got to have that rotation. So Brzee, getting a guy like Foskey in the second round, those are very, very important because when you look at the rest of the division, the Saints are going to have to stop the run. Right? The Falcons are going to run the ball.
Yep.
To protect Bryce Young, the Panthers are going to have to run the ball. And the Buccaneers, all they did was throw it during, last season during Tom Brady's run. For Baker Mayfield to have any success, they're going to have to run the ball better.
Yep.
So that's going to be more of an emphasis for the Saints defense and what they have to do. That was so getting, again, Foskey and Brzee in the early rounds to have some rotational depth and some playmakers. I mean, Brzee's a guy, when he was healthy, man, you can put him just about anywhere on the line.
Right.
Incredibly athletic, the type of dude, because there's going to be some short controlled passing games in this division when they play the young quarterbacks around the league, where you got to have a defensive lineman who can stack and pursue, right? That's what Brzee does. And so getting that and getting him up to speed, I mean, that's going to be important. I mean, the kind of the big blow that isn't probably talked about enough is them losing Ryan Nielsen, who was a great defensive line coach, defensive line coach. And he's now the DC in Atlanta. Yeah. So, that's an adjustment. But having some stalwarts in there like Cam Jordan and just really good players on the back end, a great secondary coach in Joe Woods to come in and make sure that they can cover long enough to help some of those young guys out and fill some of the run gaps when needed. Everything, if it's working together in unison, that defense is going to be just as good as it's been. Yeah.
I think one thing they needed to improve on, Steve, was just getting more athletic on the defensive line. And it seemed like, they're going in that direction. Colin Saunders, to me, is a super athlete, a guy who that big can move that fast. We've seen him make plays with Kansas City, and now he's going to be bringing that talent to New Orleans. And like you said, with Brian Brzee, we've seen him at Clemson play on the outside as well as the inside. So, he has that athletic ability. So I think that was something that the Saints actually needed to take that step forward. But we look around like the NFC South, like you mentioned, running the football is going to be key. You see Atlanta out there with Tyler Algier. They picked up B. John Robinson from the University of Texas. You also have Cordell Patterson out there that provides that. So I guess we can talk about Atlanta. New quarterback Desmond Ridder is going to be starting this season. What do you see from the Atlanta Falcons, and what can get the Atlanta Falcons back into the playoff picture?
So first off, let's start on offense. And the only real question mark is the quarterback, Desmond Ridder, right? And they're not going to ask him to do a ton. They have built their team to run the football. We have seen their identity be established over the past 2 seasons. Yeah. Run the football, play action pass, move the chains with these huge wide receivers and receiving targets, right? Kyle Pitts is a tight end in name, but he's a wide receiver, right? They go out and get Mac Hollins, who's a huge target. I mean, look what he did with the Raiders and Derek Carr last year. He's an impressive player, great special teams player. You've got Drake London. They add Jonnu Smith, so they're going to go a lot of too tight personnel when they're not in 21 personnel with 2 backs. So they're going to run the football. They're not going to ask Desmond Ridder to throw the ball 35 times a game, but they're going to step the play action, and they're not necessarily going to be this short passing team. They're going to take their shots downfield. They're going to try to hit some big plays to keep defenses honest, to open up those running lanes. So offensively, you know what they are. If Desmond Ridder can be Brock Purdy, maybe not even Brock Purdy. If he can be, look, Brock Purdy was good, man.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that as an insult. If he can be not even Brock Purdy, but just don't turn the ball over, they're going to be tough. I mean, they're a physical football team anyway, but they're going to be tough. Now, defensively is where their improvements are going to be. Right? I mentioned they got David Onyemata from the Saints, and you know exactly what he is. He's a great run stuffer who can penetrate and, playing next to Grady Jarrett, and they've got flexibility on the defensive front now, right? So they've got a multitude of DNs. You got Bud Dupree. You've got Arnold Ebiketie. They can roll in Calais Campbell on the outside if they want to go a real heavy front. They've got Kadon Ellis. They've got some linebackers who can really run. Troy Anderson. They've got dudes there now. And then you add, Jesse Bates at safety. And we know with a Saints defense, again, Ryan Nielsen from the Saints is their DC. Those safeties are hugely important. Like, look at the takeaways that the Saints have gotten over the years from their safety position, where they've gotten to fill run gaps. So that's where they added someone like Jerry Gray, a great secondary coach. So I think overall they're going to be fundamentally better. I still don't know if they've got the man beater, so to speak, the one-on-one beater to get them 13, 14 sacks a season. But with all the different options they have there to play schematic football, situational football, they should be better on defense, and they better be because they spent an awful lot of money to get some players there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I look at Caden Ellis, like you mentioned, he was with the New Orleans Saints. He had 7.5 sacks last season. And, he didn't play that much. The Saints were rolling with Pete Warner and Demario Davis most of the time. And then Pete Warner goes down and in comes Caden Ellis. And next thing you know, he gets 7.5 sacks. So I think that he can be one of those guys, kind of, was like the Trey Hendrickson type, that people didn't expect for him just to be that double-digit sack guy, but he can provide that type of spark for a defense. And, they are a young team and they're trying to figure it out, but they have a lot of weapons. And if they can get it all together, I think they can be a playoff team. Looking at another team that made the playoffs last year, but, I mean, it's a whole different ball game. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Yesterday, they came out and reported that Baker Mayfield is going to be the starting quarterback. It was a competition between him and Kyle Trask, who was going to be the starting quarterback. This seems like this is a turning of the page for Baker Mayfield, a fresh start. We all know what happened to him with Cleveland, and he bounced around a little bit. Do you think we'll see a more composed Baker Mayfield in 2023?
This is going to be interesting because, when Baker came out to the Rams at the end of last season, he played well. He played well in that scheme. Okay, so now Tampa Bay's got a new offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, who comes from Seattle, who worked under Shane Waldron, who is a Sean McVay disciple, right? So you're going to see some different things offensively. They're not going to be so much of they're not going to try to power offensive run game. They're going to be more the finesse, stretch zone, run scheme. They're going to be probably a lot of single back stuff. So they're going to be 3-by-1, too tight.
Yeah.
So they're going to do some things. Baker can move now. He's going to have to move and roll out. So their offenses are going to look a little bit differently than what they've tried to do. Now, we'll see if over 17 games Baker can get better. He's got Mike Evans. He's got Cade Otton. He's got a really good tight end, a receiving tight end. So they've got some pieces. Just the fact that they could not run the ball. I mean, think about how many times Brady was throwing it 45 times or more.
Yeah.
That's not going to work in this division. We know what the Saints defense is going to bring up front. We know what the Falcons D is going to bring up front. And the Panthers D is going to bring up. They're not going to be able to not run the football.
Right.
So, we'll see offensively. Again, they've got, and I've said this on it, the Buccaneers have more on paper Pro Bowl talent than any team. That's on paper. I think the Saints are deeper all across the board. But defensively, the Bucs still got players. Yeah. They still got dudes over there. Vita Vea. They've got guys, Shaq Barrett. So it's all just how they figure out what their offensive identity is. I don't think we know what they're going to be at. I don't know if they know what they're going to be at. But they couldn't score last year. They made the playoffs, but they couldn't score. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, when I look at them, Steve, I think the best acquisition they made was re-signing Levante David, because you mentioned, the offense is trying to figure it out. But in the meantime, like, you need those voices on defense, that leadership on defense, to be able to galvanize that team until that offense figures it out. And they still have some really good playmakers on that side. But, this is opportunity for Baker Mayfield to get that fresh start and utilize some of those weapons that they have out there. So it should be interesting to see what Tampa can do, post Brady. A lot of success over the last 2 to 3 years. The fan base wants to continue to have that success. So we'll see from the Bucs. But let's go ahead and talk about the Carolina Panthers getting the first overall pick in Bryce Young. He is as advertised. Everyone that I speak with or hear from the Carolina Panthers, they always talk about just his personality, his leadership, his willingness to learn, his teammates like him. Interacting with Bryce Young and getting to know him and seeing him. What do you think about Bryce Young as a quarterback? What can he bring to the Carolina Panthers to get them to be back in that playoff picture and being a team that can threaten the NFC South by winning the title?
Yeah, I haven't really spoken to him that much, but in speaking to some folks there, they love him. I mean, all the traits, you just said are why he could be good, but it doesn't work if he's not upright. Right. And we've seen in a few preseason games, they've got some things to work out up front.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit there and say this offensive line is a mess. I think that's completely unfair because offensive linemen, I mean, they don't get many physical practices in training camp in the offseason, right? Offseason, when they're not hitting, all they can do is work on footwork and techniques and things like that, but they need the physicality. So, I think the offensive line's got an opportunity to get better. They got some great offensive minds on that coaching staff.
Right.
Bryce is going to have a really good, I'm not going to say a decent run game, a really good run game. I think that's going to help out the offensive line. Yeah. It's going to set up the play action pass game. It's going to keep defenses honest. So they've got wide receivers they've got to develop, right? You got Adam Thielen, who's at the end of his career. They drafted Mingo out of Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. You don't know if they've got that dynamic skill set out wide, right? They traded DJ Moore to Chicago as part of the trade to get Bryce Young. So they're going to have to protect him a little bit. Right. And, not just pass protect. They're going to have to do something schematically. And, again, you've got Jim Caldwell there. You have Thomas Brown there. You've got Luke McConnell. You have some great offensive minds on top of Frank Reich being the head coach. But he's going to go through it a little bit. We've seen the good thing is we've seen him take some hits in preseason. Probably far too many than they want him to take, but they keep putting him out there. But, I mean, he's got the moxie. But it's a 17-game season. So they're going to have to grow. They're going to kind of have to figure out what this offense can do well to protect them. I think defensively they got some pieces in place and a great coordinator in Ejiro Evero who comes over from Denver, who's a stud. I mean, he'll get that defense intact. They're going to be really, really good at all three levels. Schematically and personnel-wise. Yeah,
I mean, they're changing from the 4-3 to the 3-4. Yep. He's bringing that there. And let me ask you this about Bryce Young. Everybody has critiqued his size. I mean, we've been hearing this from the combine to now. Are you concerned about him holding up, throughout the entire season, his size, and also with that offensive line? Are you concerned about him being able to withstand those NFL hits?
To some degree. I mean, if he gets hit like he's been getting hit in preseason, it's going to be tough. It would be tough for a big dude like Anthony Richardson, right? It'd be a big body dude who's taking hits like that for Josh Allen. It's going to be tough. So that's what I'm saying. They have to run the ball. They've got to keep defenses honest, and they have to protect him. Like, he's been dealing with this his entire life, right? From when he was playing out here in California to in high school to going to Alabama. But Alabama, he had great offensive lines. They did things. Look, he's going to be smart enough to get the ball out of his hands, this and that. But you better believe every game defenses are going in there to test him. Yeah, they're going to hit him to the legal element of it.
Yeah,
and that's why he's got to get it out. They can't be doing these 7-step drops and waiting for things to develop until this offensive line gets situated. And I do think the O-line is going to get situated.
Yeah,
it's just they got to protect him. He got to protect himself until then, but. Look, like I said, Josh Allen, all these big quarterbacks aren't going to hold up if they're going to continue to get hit by these cats.
Yeah. I mean, that's alarming. What we've seen in preseason, hopefully they can get that offensive line on track so they can be able to protect him because, I mean, he's an extraordinary talent. I mean, we all know about his arm strength. We all know about his arm talent, but they definitely need to be able to hold him up. Let's go back to the New Orleans Saints and let me ask you about Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas has been dealing with injuries over the last 2.5 seasons. He seems to be back into form. He played in the first game of preseason in the first series. What are your thoughts on Michael Thomas? Can Michael Thomas get back to that not so much 2019, but can he still be one of the top receivers in the league?
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I honestly can't answer that because physically, you mentioned 2.5 years, and it's not like he's been dealing with shoulders. So he's dealing with legs.
Right.
Mike Thomas is going to work harder than anybody. That dude's work ethic is like insane, right? So, he's going to work to be good. And if he physically can get out there and be durable, let's say he loses a step of explosiveness. If he can still find a way to catch the 50-50 balls, he's such a good route runner. If he can do things to, set defenders up to get open, that's fine. I mean, windows are tight on receivers and quarterbacks anyway. The one thing is Mike's playing with a quarterback who's going to understand him and get the ball to him where it needs to be done. But in terms of projecting what Mike Thomas is going to do, it's just hard. You honestly don't know. You don't know how defenses are going to play him. Are they going to come out and double him, double Olave? If he gets singled up, Mike Thomas is going to win. Right. So, you just have to see exactly how things are going to lay out. But I am not the dude who's going to doubt Mike Thomas. I have seen how hard he works. I have heard from people in the building that this dude is like working to be great. And that's and my respect level for that is immeasurable. So again, it is all a we'll see, but you kind of hope he gets back to it because the guy was a great player.
Yeah. That there's a debate among Saints fans and also just Saints media about, what type of receiver Michael Thomas needs to be at this stage of his career. And you mentioned guys like Olave, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry seems like he's coming on the 6th round pick out of Wake Forest.
Tight ends. You got great tight ends who can be part of this team too.
Yeah, because once upon a time, I mean, it was the Michael Thomas show. Like if Michael Thomas wasn't up, I don't know what other wide receiver wouldn't have been able to step up. I think the year where he caught 149 catches, I think there was a difference between like 61 catches in between him and the next receiver. So he doesn't have to be that guy anymore, but for him to like bring something to the table, I still think the Saints can be extremely dangerous offensively. And finally, you talked a little bit about, the term people within the building. We have to mention this guy. All superheroes in the NFL don't wear helmets.
I know where you're going with this.
I'm talking Kai Harley.
You better believe it.
Kai Harley just been promoted to assistant GM. What are your thoughts on Kai Harley? I mean, he's been the unsung hero for the New Orleans Saints when it comes to contracts and switching things around in order to make the Saints cap compliant. What are your thoughts on Kai Harley finally getting his just due and getting promoted?
Well, I mean, congrats to the Saints for recognizing and valuing somebody who's – I'm stunned. I am honestly stunned that no team has plucked him away.
Mm.
And, you talked about his greatness as a salary cap manager and things like that. But, I know Kai very well.
Yeah.
And he understands personnel, right? He didn't come up in scouting like Terry Fontenot did, who's now the GM. He didn't come up in that way, but he understands it, right?
Right.
He's not going to be the guy to go out and tell Mickey Loomis or whatever, hey, we got to go out and get this 5 technique because look at how he stacks up and how he sets up things. Like, he's not that guy. Right. However, he understands human beings. And a lot of times measuring the quality of the person, understanding the work ethic, that's huge because not everyone can do that, right? So the fact that the Saints have it structured in a way where, yes, he handles the analytics in terms of money, cap projections, things like that, and is such a great human, right? Who can just really look the person in the eye and kind of diagnose certain things right away.
Right.
That's huge. I mean, again, if I'm a team to look at somebody to lead my franchise in terms of be it stadium development, be it community relations, dealing with people, salary cap management, overseeing a staff, Kai Harley is my guy.
Yeah.
And I know everyone thinks also these general managers have to be personnel guys. They don't. Look at Brandon Beane with the Bills. He came up very much like Kai.
Yeah.
I mean, they're Wall Street guys, and Kai's kind of one of these Wall Street guys like Andrew Berry in Cleveland who are putting together great rosters.
Yep.
So, and basically, and they're also setting the tone for the building, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing I don't think Kai gets enough credit for. Because I remember Sean Payton would tell me about Kai Harley years ago. Like, Steve, this guy is like, we couldn't get by without him, right? He's glue. He's a glue guy.
Yeah.
And so salute to Kai. I can't stop praising him enough. I can't stop praising the Saints enough for recognizing his value. Because if they don't, somebody else will soon.
Yeah.
Because he is a real one, and the Saints need to be very, very grateful they've got him on their staff.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Every year we hear about the Saints. Oh, how they're going to get in compliance with the cap. What are they going to do? And then all of a sudden, here comes Kyle Harley working his magic. And I also seen a tweet by Saints safety Tyrann Mathieu, and he said he was one of the best people he ever been around. Like, just think about that. Like, Tyrann Mathieu has been in the league for over a decade, been with some really great franchises, Super Bowl champion, and him bigging up Kai Harley at that moment is a testament to the type of individual and human being that Kai Harley is. So congratulations to him. Definitely deserves what he's gotten in that promotion, and looking forward to seeing what he can do in the future. And speaking of which, we want to thank you for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast, Steve. And thank you so much for giving us your takes on the NFC South. And we look forward to hearing from you on the NFL Network and throughout the NFL season. But before you go, but before you go, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, just find me on X, Twitter, Instagram, and on Threads at Wyche, W-Y-C-H-E, number 89.
Yeah, make sure you check them out, and definitely check them out on the NFL Network, doing an outstanding job there. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Wyche from the NFL Network here on the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much, sir.
Hey, real quick, can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead. Hey,
and by the way, you're gonna be breaking this news. We're breaking it on your podcast.
Oh, really?
Beginning on September 7th, we are launching a new show.
Wow.
Called the NFL Report, and it will show up on your streaming, on your fast streaming networks like Tubi, Roku, things like that, on the NFL channel, on your fast networks called the NFL Report. It will be hosted by myself and James Palmer. We'll have an array of our great reporters and analysts and other people from around the NFL on. So we're breaking it on the State of the Saints podcast. So there you go, my man.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Whoa, looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to it. We know it's going to be an outstanding show. You always give great analysis, and just appreciate everything that you do, Steve. And thank you so much for giving us that information here on the State of the Saints podcast.
Appreciate you.
All right, take care.